I'm Jude, a barista tucked away in the mountains of Asheville, where the scent of burning wood and fresh coffee once meant everything to me. Life felt perfect. A cozy cabin, my boys, Finn and Theo, tearing through it, and Nora, the wife I thought would always be mine. But one windy night, I caught her tangled up with Casper, her so-called hiking buddy, right on our porch. She didn't flinch. She just suggested an open marriage, like I was some worn-out toy she could toss aside. I thought that was the worst of it, until Sage, Casper's sister, a woman who knew too much, walked into my life with a truth that hit harder. Nora hadn't just cheated. She'd set Casper loose to wreck my dream of expanding my coffee shop, all to keep me under her thumb. And Casper? He wasn't even the man she thought he was. Turns out she'd been testing me from the start. A twisted game that unraveled over years. I fought back, won, and pulled myself out of the ashes. Want to know how I broke free from that mess? Grab a coffee, sit down, and I'll tell you. I used to think my life was solid. A cabin in Asheville's mountains surrounded me. The smell of pine and coffee beans clung to the air. My boys Finn and Theo filled it with laughter and chaos. Nora stood at the center. Her sharp smile and herbal teas were a constant I'd leaned on for 8 years. But cracks had shown. Once, she grilled me over a flirty customer. Her eyes narrowed with suspicion I'd dismissed as jealousy. I was Jude, the barista who kept things steady, the guy who built a coffee shop from nothing. I never saw the storm coming. It hit me that night, a nagging itch I couldn't shake. I'd been hauling beans from Hendersonville, but Nora's excuses about hiking with Casper rang hollow, too vague, too often. I cut the trip short, drove back through winding roads under a heavy sky, heard the wind howl like a bad omen. The cabin loomed dark when I pulled up. Finn and Theo were at her mom's. The silence hung thick. I stepped inside, my boots creaked. I called her name. No answer came. Her tea mug sat cold on the counter. Then I heard it. A muffled laugh drifted from the screened porch. My gut twisted. I pushed the door open, saw them there. Nora, tangled up with Casper, her legs over his hand on her waist. Her mug had tipped. Chamomile pooled like a stain. The wind rattled the screens. My world went dead quiet. "Jude," Nora said, her voice cool as ice. She didn't even flinch. Casper leaned back, smirked, tossed out, "Relax, man, it's no big deal." My throat burned. "What the hell is this?" I spat, my voice shook. Nora brushed hair from her face, stayed casual as if we were discussing dinner. "You're early," she said. Then the hammer dropped. "It's been 18 months with Casper. I didn't think you'd mind this much." 18 months. A year and a half of lies rolled over me. I'd ground beans and raised our boys while she wove this secret. "You didn't think I'd mind?" I shot back, incredulous. "You think I'd just roll over for this?" Casper chuckled. That low grating sound made my fists clench. Nora stood, smoothed her sweater, kept her tone maddeningly calm. "We don't have to end it," she said. "Open things up. You do you, I do me. It's modern, Jude." Modern. As if our marriage was a contract she could rewrite. I stared at her, the woman I'd loved, saw a stranger with lips still red from him. "You're serious, I said, my chest tightened. She nodded, crossed her arms. "Think about it." Casper's smirk widened, dared me to snap. I couldn't breathe in that porch. The air rotted with their arrogance. I turned, stumbled inside, gripped the counter with trembling hands. Her wooden ring caught my eye on the mantel, the one I'd carved when Finn was born, a pine tree etched into it, a promise, now hollow. Its glow taunted me in the firelight. 18 months, open marriage, Casper's laugh churned in my skull, a storm I couldn't outrun. My phone buzzed then. A text from Sage popped up. Casper's sister, a regular who'd snagged my number from a business card for bulk tea orders. We should talk about him, it said. I didn't know what she meant, but it was a spark in the dark, something to hold on to. That night broke me wide open, spilled 8 years into the dirt. Nora thought she could play me. Casper thought he'd won, but they didn't know the real Jude, not yet. I'd fight, I'd dig. This was just the beginning. The cabin wasn't home anymore. Its walls pulsed with Nora's betrayal. Every creak echoed that night on the porch. I couldn't stay. Not with Finn and Theo asking why Daddy looked so tired. So I packed a bag, grabbed my grinder, moved into a Boone rental 30 minutes from Asheville's ghosts. It was a sparse place with a sagging couch, a chipped mug on the counter, nothing else worth noting. Nora didn't fight it, just shrugged, said we'd sort custody later. Her calm cut deeper than any argument, as if I'd been a shadow in her life. I threw myself into the shop, roasting beans, pouring shots, letting the hum of regulars numb me. Finn and Theo split time between us. Their giggles at the counter kept me sane, though their questions about Mommy jabbed like splinters. A week later, I took them to Boone's farmer's market for spices, needing a distraction. That's when Sage appeared. She stood at a stall, curls wild, jars of tea blends stacked high with earthy scents. I knew her from the shop. She'd ordered bulk chamomile once, left a tip with a smiley face. "Coffee guy," she said, her voice warm, teasing. I grinned, handed Finn $1 for honey, let Theo wander nearby. We traded cloves, her fingers brushed mine, a flicker sparked I hadn't felt in months. She asked about the boys. I mentioned Nora. Her face tightened. "Casper's sister?" she said, softer now. I nodded. His name stung. "Yeah, you're his sister," I replied, piecing it together. She looked away, then back, fierce. "He's not what people think, Jude. I've seen him lurking near your shop once. Thought nothing of it then." I froze, recalled a vague memory of Casper's shadow by my door weeks back, shrugged it off at the time. Finn ran up, sticky-handed, broke the moment. Sage handed Theo a peppermint leaf, told me to stop by again. I left with her tea, a strange hope stirring, questions piling up. Nora caught wind of it. Her first call came that night, casual, asking how Finn and Theo were adjusting. I kept it short, but the next day, texts flooded in. "Who's that woman at the market?" Sharper each time. I ignored them, focused on the shop, until 2 days later, I saw her shadow outside, sharp against the fogged glass, watching me pour a latte. "You're moving on with her?" She hissed over the phone that night, venom dripping, jealousy thick. I hung up, my hands shook, I burned a batch of beans. She'd never cared this much when I was hers. Now she hunted me like I was prey. It baffled me, her tossing me aside, then clawing to keep me in sight. Sage dropped by the shop soon after, brought lavender tea, said it had calmed my nerves. We sat out back, the boys napped inside, rain pattered on the roof. She sipped my espresso, locked eyes with me, then let it slip. Casper bragged about it once, drunk at a bar. I'd pressed him after he screwed over a friend, and he laughed, said he fed the bank lies about your loan, killed your second shop. My cup trembled, coffee sloshed over the rim. "What?" I croaked. She leaned in, voice steady. Nora, set it up, Jude. Wanted you stuck, dependent. It wasn't just an affair, it was a trap. 18 months snapped into focus. Her lies weren't just about Casper. They'd torched my dream. That smug bastard's victory grin made sense now. I'd planned that shop for a year, watched it die. Never knew why until now. Rage boiled up, hot and bitter like scorched grounds. I wanted to smash something. Sage held my gaze, didn't waver. Why tell me? I asked, voice rough. Because I've watched him ruin lives, she said, and you don't deserve it. Her words landed, a lifeline I didn't see coming, a crack of light in the dark. Nora's texts kept coming, her jealousy a relentless hum, but Sage's truth shifted the ground beneath me. They'd tried to cage me, shrink me, burn my plans to ash. I gripped the cup, let the heat steady me, felt something harden inside. Nora's shadow could loom, her claws could dig. I had a spark now, one she couldn't touch. Sage finished her coffee. I nodded. We didn't need more words. This wasn't over. Nora's shadow didn't just hover, it clawed. Her jealousy morphed into something feral after Sage's visit to the shop. I'd spotted her car lurking near the team twice that week, a dark blur I brushed off as paranoia, but I was wrong. A week after Sage dropped the lone bombshell, a process server shoved custody papers into my hands while I steamed milk. Nora's name scrawled across claims I was unstable, unfit for Finn and Theo. Unstable, the word stung, like I'd been the one to torch our family. Whispers trickled in from regulars too, her lies spreading, tales of me neglecting the boys, unraveling at the edges. I burned a batch of beans that day. The shop reeked of char, my hands shook with fury. She wanted it all, my kids, my sanity, my name in the mud. I couldn't let her take them, not after everything. Sage saw the crumpled papers when she stopped by with lavender tea, its scent cutting through the bitterness. She's ruthless, she said, her voice steady, fierce. Fight her, Jude. I nodded, jaw clenched, knew she was right. I hired a PI, a gruff guy named Hal who stank of cigars. Gave him every dime I could scrape from the shop. He dug fast. Came back in a week or two with a folder thick as my wrist. Nora had siphoned thousands from our joint shop account. She'd handled the books since we started, hid it from me over months, funded her hikes with Casper, her lies. Hal had photos, grainy shots of them at a mountain diner, heads bent over papers, plotting my ruin. My stomach twisted. It wasn't just cheating, it was a calculated bleed. She came for me in person too, stormed my rental one night while Sage sketched Finn and Theo's faces over coffee. I'd seen her car that afternoon. Should have known she'd snap. The boys slept, rain drummed the roof. Her fist pounded the door. I opened it, found her wild-eyed, hair plastered from the storm. You think you can replace me with her? She screamed, jabbing at Sage, who stood calm, pencil still. I gave you everything, Jude, and you're stealing my life. Her voice broke, tears glistened, but I saw the act. Her rage was the truth. You threw us away, Nora, I said, low, firm. This is on you. She lunged. I caught her wrist, held steady. She spat venom about Sage, me, until I pushed her back, shut the door. My hands trembled. Sage touched my shoulder, whispered, "You're stronger than she knows." Sage became my rock. Her tease dulled my jagged nights. Her sketches of Finn and Theo's laughter lit something in me. We'd sit out back. Her pencils scratched paper, my coffee cooled, our hands brushed more now, a warmth I didn't chase but welcomed. She'd caught Finn teaching Theo to stack cups, turned it into a drawing that proved I wasn't the wreck. Nora claimed I gave it to Hal to build the case, show the judge my boys belonged with me. Nora's lies teetered, but she'd stacked them high. I needed more. Hal called me out to the diner a week later, his voice rough over the phone. "Got something big, Jude." I drove there, heart hammering. Found him in a booth with photos, Casper's smirk staring from mugshots. "He's a con man," Hal said, tapping the table. "Fleeced partners, upstate, skipped town, left wreckage. Nora's in it. Your shop money's his latest score." I stared. Pieces crashed together. Casper wasn't just her lover, he was a parasite. She'd fed him my life. "They planned it?" I asked, throat dry. Hal nodded. "Diner shots show her signing off. She's no pawn, Jude. She's his partner." My chest burned. 18 months wasn't love. It was a scam. Her jealousy over Sage had torn their plot apart. I drove back, fists tight on the wheel. Rage and relief battled inside me. Nora hadn't just betrayed me. She'd sold me out, handed Casper the tools to gut me. That time Sage saw him near the shop. It wasn't chance. He'd been stalking my dreams, waiting. I'd thought her coldness was brutal, but this cut deeper, a knife twisted with intent. Sage met me at the shop, saw my face, poured espresso without a word. "She's done," I said, clutching her sketch of me with the boys, Finn's grin anchoring me. "I'm taking her down." Sage nodded, her eyes blazed. She didn't need to speak. I felt it. We were in this together. Nora's war raged, her claws bared, but I had proof. I had fire. I had Sage. The fight wasn't done. It was just beginning. The courtroom smelled of stale coffee and old wood, a grim arena for Nora's last stand. I sat there, fists tight. Sage beside me, her lavender scent steadying me as the judge sifted through Hal's folder. Nora stood across, poised, her lawyer weaving tales of my collapse, but I had truth. Mugshots, bank records, diner photos, Sage's sketches of Finn and Theo's joy. Hal's work hit hard. Every lie Nora spun shattered against it. She called me unstable, unfit, but the judge's eyes sharpened on her signatures, her theft laid bare. "This isn't instability, Mrs. Nora," he said, voice cutting. "This is crime." She flinched, her facade cracked. I felt a cold surge, not triumph, just justice. He gave me joint custody, ordered her to repay every cent from her secret stash, her final lifeline gone. She fell apart quick. Casper had vanished when Hal's evidence dropped. Hal had warned me in that diner, "Cops are closing in. He won't last." I'd nodded then, didn't know it had come so fast. Nora tried calling him, I heard. Got nothing but dead air, her ally gone, her schemes dust. A week later, she dragged herself to my Boone doorstep, rain-soaked, trembling, hollowed out. "I didn't mean it to go this far," she said, voice thin, broken. "We can fix this, Jude. I just wanted us back." I stared, saw the lie, another desperate pull to drag me under. "You sold me out, Nora," I said, flat, unyielding. "There's no us." She reached. I stepped back, shut the door, heard her sob, felt nothing. Her ruin was hers alone now. No boys, no Casper, just the wreckage she'd made. Months later, I settled in Hendersonville with Sage, a new cabin where her herbal sketches bloomed on the walls. Finn and Theo's carvings climbed the shelves. We'd grown slow. Her hand fit mine perfect, a warmth born from ash, not haste. One afternoon, I showed Finn how to grind beans. His small hands fumbled but grinned, while Sage and Theo sorted sage leaves. Their laughter filled the air. It wasn't the life I'd mapped 8 years back. It was richer, tougher, real. The shop thrived. I eyed that second location again. No shadows holding me now. Sage's tea jars lined my counter. Her presence wove through every inch. We weren't just surviving, we were whole. Then the letter slipped under the shop door one morning. Casper's scrawl on prison paper, stamped from a cell up north. I'd heard whispers he'd been nabbed, Hal's words echoing. Now here it was. I tore it open. Sage leaned close. My espresso nearly slipped. "She started it, Jude," he wrote, sloppy, smug. "Years back, Nora wanted to test you, see if you'd stay true. A sick little game. I just turned it to cash." My chest locked. That memory burned bright. Her cold stare years ago over a customer, probing, testing, not jealousy. A leash she'd set. 18 months. The affair, the scams, all spiraled from her warped trap, meant to bind me, not break me. Rage flared, then fizzled. What was left to burn? Sage squeezed my hand. I struck a match, watched the paper crisp to ash in the sink. "She's gone," I said, voice calm. Felt the weight fall away. I stepped onto the porch that night, the same spot where it all split open, where Nora and Casper had carved me hollow. It felt different now. Hendersonville's air softer, the pines murmuring peace, not warnings. I'd lost a wife, nearly lost my boys, my dreams, but I'd fought, reclaimed it, not alone, with Sage, with Finn and Theo, with a fire Nora couldn't kill. She'd thought she could test me, play me, shatter me. She didn't see the man I'd forged. That night in Boone, burning Casper's words, I'd cut her loose. The lies, the games, the pain. I leaned on the railing, heard Sage hum inside, Finn's giggle, Theo's chatter, felt complete. This wasn't the end I'd pictured. It was redemption, hard-earned, true. Nora's war had roared, her claws had ripped, but I stood taller, scars and all. Life wasn't flawless, never would be, but it was mine. Ours, a brew stronger than she'd ever grasp. I turned inside, closed that porch door for good, ready for whatever lay ahead. Looking back, I've learned life never follows your plans, but it always leaves a way out if you dare to take it. Nora tried to cage me in her web, turned love into chains, twisted it into a sick game to control me. I fell, I hurt, but I got back up, not because I was strong from the start, but because I found people worth fighting for, Finn, Theo, Sage, myself. The biggest lesson? Don't let anyone define you by what they destroy. Like when I burned Casper's letter, I reclaimed the right to carve my own story. I built it anew from the ashes, found light not by luck, but because I chose to keep going. If you were caught in Nora's trap, what would you do? Let go or fight? Leave your thoughts. I want to hear them. I want to know how this story touches you. This coffee's gone cold, but I'll brew another. See you all again on another journey, another day.